We're now all set to bring to you our panel discussion on employer branding, the future of work, leadership, and the employee experience. May I please request all of you to extend a very warm welcome to our panelists. May I present to you Ms. Roshni Wadhwa, Director, HR, L'Oreal India. Please put your hands together as I also extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Govindprasad Gaonkar, Head of Human Resources, Kotak Asset Management Company. May I also present to you Ms. Mona Tripathi, Head HR, RadioCity. And a very warm welcome to our moderator. Joining us yet again is Mr. David Madhu, Associate Director, KPMG. As we look forward to a very interactive panel discussion right here, we will like to have a few questions at the end of the discussion. And of course, let's make sure that we get to interact right here. A round of applause as I present to you.
Good afternoon. For the ones hearing me out for the second time, I feel I'm lucky. I'm sorry if you're feeling bad about it, but bear with me. Okay. And the topic as such, I would like to start it off with sharing that I've started my career at an FMCG distributor back in 2004. From thereafter, I moved to a startup concern. Startup is a fair bit of a word or a good term to be used now. Back then, it wasn't the case. I used to spend good 7-8 minutes detailing what am I doing because the brand was such. I used to talk a lot about selling my own company for quite good time and then telling them what meaningful work I do over there. And then I moved to a bigger brand, and then I started wondering what does a HR do when everything is set up. Because in a startup, I was setting up everything. I ended up seeing all processes in place. I'm like, what have they hired me for? And then the journey goes on. I've evolved over a period of time, and I continue to be associated with larger brands. Having said that, what I've shared with you people is the experiences I've had. Did I ever talk about my profile? Did I ever talk about what work I was doing, the number of days where I was enjoying, even more number of days where I was cribbing about what I was doing? Which we certainly do, we don't admit it. But having gone through this entire journey, what exactly is something that you have experienced? At this point, I would like to bring in Mona and ask her about this aspect of it. What is employer branding for you? Where does it start? I mean, we're going to ask the same question to all of them to start with, and then we go as the discussion is on. But we start with Mona for that.
So when we talk about employer branding, we all know, and if I have to answer in a straight word, we will say that it has to start right from recruitments till the person is there in the system. I think, and we are seeing a lot of things which are happening currently. We are seeing the employers are now putting right from recruitment what they are doing till training and everything, they are putting it on site, and people are understanding what is now a current organization is doing. But I think more than that, it is very important that what kind of aspect, what kind of a brand is that organization all about. And what, like when we talk about a product, we know that the strength of this product is this, hence there is a branding of that particular product. In the similar fashion, if we see, while we are branding, while we are seeing that we have to talk about what is our strength, I think we should first understand what is our strength in that. So like while I am in RadioCity, we talk about tough love very strongly. So while we are communicating to our potential candidates and our employees and other stakeholders, are we communicating enough that what are we actually about? Are we talking about that, yes, we follow the value system very thoroughly. So while talking about say induction, what kind of induction we are doing, it is always linked to one value system which we follow. So I think that is something which I feel is very, very strong while we are doing branding.
Nice. Something that I associate with the moment I hear about RadioCity is certainly your RJs are the ones that echo, and the vibrance and all of it. I mean, how does that inculcated into the organization, or how is that you tell people or you don't tell people, they get inside and then they start feeling, how does that work?
So while our RadioCity is a very young organization, we have a different vibrance in the system. Like once you enter the office, you could understand, you can sense very clearly that it is Radio City because RJs usually cannot keep quiet. They are at the highest pitch and they will keep talking. So it is very difficult to tell them because there are other departments also, but we, from our culture point of view, we don't tell anyone to change the individuality. Like for RJs, when we talk about Salil or maybe about Archana, they carry their own individuality. While we hire these people or anyone in the system, maybe it is finance department or other department, the clear recruitment process which we follow is about whether these people carry RC values or no. Are they will be able to manage that while once they come in. And these RJs, while they are there in the system, if their individuality is like, if I speak about Salil, he speaks more about cricket or finances because his strength is that individually. So we will always emphasize on that individuality more.
Got it. Roshni, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you, and lovely to see all of you in person. It's been a long time, thanks to pandemic, but now it's been something that we are keeping behind. So let me take a little step back and talk a little bit about employer branding. I think in general today we see there is a huge rise of social media, there is a huge rise of digital, and we cannot even forget about talking about the great resignation or the great reshuffle that is happening around us. And this is really leading to a lot of organization really going back to the drawing board and talking about employer branding. So today I think employer branding has become not a good thing to have, but it's become a very, very strategic point. The boardrooms are actually putting this up in the conversation. It is important today because you are targeting to a pool of talent, yeah, a quality talent, which is slowly and gradually I see is becoming steadily narrow and narrow. And hence, how do you put yourself out in the market to be able to position yourself and to be able to attract the right talent? So how do you convert your good attrition to a good attraction? I think that's where your employer branding actually comes, to make a play. It's very important that when you start talking about your EVP and how you want to brand your organization, right, the promise that you want to give to your people, it has to be linked very strategically to your purpose of the organization. So it has to start in terms of what as an organization you are living up a purpose, and arising out of that, what kind of culture that you want to build in the organization, and the manifestation that you want to build in the organization. That then has to link into your EVP, which is what you go out and campaign and communicate about everyone, in general. So let me give you an example. In L'Oreal, our purpose really is create the beauty that moves the world, right? So that's something that we talk about as our purpose. And when we come down to our culture, we want to inculcate the culture of innovation. We want to inculcate the culture of entrepreneurship, the whole drive that people should have, the entrepreneurial mindset, the whole empowerment that we want to create. If I were to put all of these together and be able to arrive my employer, branding promise to the people that I have in the system, we came up with our employer branding to say that freedom, freedom to go beyond. That's the beauty at L'Oreal. So that's our EVP promise for our people. And when you look at deep dive into this one-liner, it talks about freedom to go beyond, which means it talks about innovation, it talks about having an entrepreneur mindset, it's about creating your own space and creating your own area of expertise to be able to own it up, right? So it just sums it up everything. I think that's the way you really go about building your employer brand promise. But I think the most important aspect is how do you bring this alive, right? And I definitely would like to talk about few elements or a few parallel pillars that really helps to do that. First and foremost, your internal employees. I think there cannot be bigger brand ambassadors to talk about what this organization is, what is the experience, what is the perception that they are carrying than your own employees within the organization. And again, you can talk about employees into two different aspects. One is your leaders, because they have to embrace this entire ways of working and the value proposition that you want to promise into their day-to-day life, right? And similarly, it's for employees to really experience and walk the talk. To be able to build that again, you need to have the right behaviors in the organization, right practices, and right systems. I think all of these needs to be really syncing together to be able to create that experience. I would also go a step beyond to say that it's not just employees, but it's also the candidates that you meet every day. Yeah. So when you talk about the CX for the marketing team could be customer experience or a consumer experience, but for HR in particular, it's about candidate experience. So today, we are sitting in our system and we actually map what is the candidate experience in every interactions that they do it. So we have a GRPs. We actually follow the GRPs in terms of how candidate is experiencing the organization, because they really become the proponent of what they are experiencing with the organization. And the last one, and I will stop there, is really our partners who we work with, the agency partners. I think they are our extended office, they are our extended arm, and therefore how do we also embrace them into making them understand how we work in an organization, become extremely important to curate your entire employer branding, and be able to do a campaign and create your brand ambassadors within and outside.
Nice. Good insights overall in the way you have put that together. Govind, would you like to go ahead next?
Thank you, Sapphire Solutions, for inviting us here, and it's a pleasure to be amongst you. And let me begin this way. Why do corporations or corporates brand or build a brand? Okay, they build a brand to be able to market their products. Okay, it started with marketing their products so that their customers know more about the company, know more about the products. Okay, at some point, these corporations also realize the importance that they have to be able to sell themselves to their prospective employees. And it's a very important aspect that you are able to really talk about yourself and let people know what you stand for. Okay. So what is employer branding really? It's all about what is the culture of the company, how do you treat people, how do you treat your employees, are you being judgmental of your employees, or do you really provide them the freedom to really work, and is it an open architecture or a very hierarchical company? Okay. So the real essence of employer branding is to actually let people know what you really stand for. Okay. And currently I work with Kotak Mahindra Asset Management Company, and I'm a boomerang. I worked with this company many years back, and happy to be back with the group after a gap of 15 years. And we are a truly Indian but a global firm. Okay. And to be able to juggle between these two identities is not easy. Okay, we have a large global presence, but we are a truly Indian company. But how do you manage the expectations of people? And this is what we keep conveying to our people, whether it is the campus program, whether it is while hiring laterals from the market, or even the existing people today. And I will not even get into specific HR processes like the induction program or the appraisal process. Okay, the entire journey is important. Okay, and today we are moving towards automation. We all have our HRMS systems. Okay, we have automated most of our HR processes. But the real essence today, okay, to be able to really talk about our brand to our people and convey what we stand for is the personal touch. Okay, unless you are in touch with your employees, how will they live the values of the company? Okay, just by putting it on the intranet doesn't really help build that culture in your employees. You have to be in touch, you have to inculcate that behavior. The employees also have to see the leaders walk the talk. Okay, and these are essential ingredients which really form the employer brand. And today we are seeing challenges while hiring certain new roles because the kind of roles are evolving, roles are changing. Okay, let me give you an example. Today within the investment teams also, today people are talking about quant funds. Okay, people are talking about hiring data scientists for certain roles to be able to do a predictive analysis, which was never the case even till about 3-4 years back. And these are a different kind of people. Okay, they need their flexibility, they need their time and space, so to speak. Okay, and to be able to hire these people, and they're, let me put it this way, they are kind of very intelligent people. Okay, with a different mindset, who will continue to work with data, and they may not even mingle with other people. So how do you hire them? How do you bring them into the system? And how do you ensure that they get along with other people? It's a very, very difficult task. Okay. So hence, automation is not the answer. To be able to really take forward the agenda of employer branding, and it is not just the HR department's responsibility. Okay, the entire leadership team and the other employees who've been in the system, okay, have to own up that responsibility of helping new people understand and assimilate the culture of the company. That's very, very important.
Sure. I mean, you brought in certain aspects to it. I mean, one is the culture, hierarchical, or is it a flat organization, flexibility, time and space, all of it. I mean, the flexibility part of it, if we stick to that, I mean, how important is that, you feel? I mean, post-COVID era, we have got multiple reactions to things when they say, please come back to office. People are reacting in a different way. I myself feel that way because Monday morning I fly from Hyderabad to Mumbai and then I'm back on a Friday evening. That's how I'm doing for the last 8-9 months now. But how important is it for you to consider those aspects of it? Or where do you say, like, see, here is where it stops? There are certain roles where we cannot do it. I mean, how did you handle that? Can you take it? You can certainly.
So, extremely important and very, very relevant in today's context, especially the last 2.5 years that we've gone through the COVID pandemic, completely unprecedented. In fact, if you all will recollect, the day when the complete shutdown was, or lockdown was announced, okay, our IT teams, our admin teams had to really work overnight and ensure that every staff member gets a laptop. Okay, especially staff who used to work in office had a desktop on their desks. Suddenly they were given laptops, they were given those dongles to be able to work from home. And I give a lot of credit to these teams because they really stretched themselves to be able to provide this infrastructure to staff members so that they could operate from home. And it was really tough. And I'll give you my own example. I joined this company during the peak of COVID, okay, in April 2020. And I was based in Pune. And because of the lockdown, I couldn't even travel to Bombay because you needed a certificate from the police to be able to travel. Okay, travel was not allowed. I didn't even have a laptop. So situations were uncertain and very, very tough. And over the last couple of years, people have got used to working remotely, working with that kind of flexibility at home. And it has been a tough time, especially for women. Okay, taking care of kids, cooking food, focusing on your work life, stretched hours of work, it has been a tough time. No maids at home, no cooks at home. Because of COVID, you didn't want to let a outside person enter your house. So now what has happened over these 2.5 years is people want to continue with that working style. They've got used to it. And I think as organizations, we also have to be agile and be able to provide these facilities or the flexibility for employees to work from home. See, we are a highly regulated company, okay? We are governed by SEBI. Certain roles in our company will have to come back and operate from the office, especially the investment teams, some of the operations people and stuff like that. Okay, but today as we speak, we would like to provide the flexibility to most others to be able to work from home. So the issue here is the other section who has to come regularly to the office will say, oh, they are getting this benefit and facility, why can't we? So that's a tough challenge to manage, okay? And hence, we are also continuously working towards building policies which will take care of some of these issues.
Sure, Govind, that's insightful. Mona, I mean, this is just to break the chain, Roshni, don't mind. Otherwise, it was going like passing the ball from that end to this end and again back. So, Mona, if you can please give your insights onto this one.
So while we talk about post-pandemic, how it has changed, I think there were a couple of changes while I talk about RadioCity, and that time I was also managing Midday. So that time, editorial department and RJs, they don't understand technology at all. They in their head, they don't understand how laptops work, how things are working. So there was absolutely a drastic change which we had seen. Now the situation is like this, where we are telling them to come back. They are all technically savvy. They know how they can work. They have done a studio shift at their places. The changes is so much now, and now when we talk about digital coming into the picture, these people have become influencers themselves. They can earn much more than what we were giving them before.
Yeah.
So now there is a drastic change in the mindset of these people. They don't, previously also they were not doing a 9 to 5 kind of a job. But now it is very evident. I think post-COVID they have understood only a job doesn't serve their purpose. There are other things through which they can actually earn money, and they are sticking to that. So I think now from the HR point of view, we have made contracts, policies in a way where it works for both of us, because we cannot work without them. They are the face of our organization. So there are policies which are made which is working for them and working for us.
Got it. When you say set up at home, the RJs were working from home? Is that what you
Yes,
meant?
they had put a studio in their houses and they have invested themselves. There
Quite
were some
interesting.
amount, in some of the places we had done it, but some of the places where we thought these people can come, they were just nearby to the offices, but they have invested and they have now started doing other things also with what investment they have done.
It's quite good to know. I mean, there's never a Teams call where I don't have a background noise or someone trying to tell me, can you switch off the fan or something like that, because there's always something going on. If an RJ can do that, I want to understand the setup that they have done. Roshni, your comments, please.
You know, very recently I was interacting with Krish Iyer, who is the head of HR for Infosys. It's a large setup, we all know, and I think this is one of the conglomerate which were always ahead of the curve in saying that we are going to go remote completely and we are going to shut our offices, people can work from anywhere and so on. I think down the line, and this was his experience that he was sharing, that if an organization has to build a culture of innovation, has to build a culture of collaboration, it's not going to happen when you don't have a connect. And literally you cannot have robots working in the organization who are starting in the work in the morning at 9 o'clock and they are hopping from one meeting to another looking at the screen throughout the day. And a company like an IT-enabled company like this, to hear this, I was surprised and I asked him then, how are you going to go about it? He said the fact of the matter is that in the last 1 year, we have lost 65% of our people. That's the attrition level that he talked about. But I said, look, your people are not going to come. And he said, yeah, gone are those days where we used to create large campuses, gym facility, canteen facility, and people were coming in and so on. And therefore, the whole thinking about it right now is to build satellite offices. So we want to go about building satellite offices where we want to create some part of the facilities where people can still come and work together. So my point is absolutely resonating with what he said. And while we were at some point of time very extreme pre-pandemic where we were working in the office throughout, and then came the pandemic, we were extremely extreme to work from the home. And let me tell you, there were also horror experience around that. There were people who were really fed up of sitting at home and they wanted to unleash themselves out, even women for that matter, right? Because they were the biggest bearer of this whole pressure that they were going through, and there was no work-life balance. I think they were in fact complaining about the life was better, when pre-pandemic, when we used to go to office. So there were different things that were happening. And therefore, coming to the center is something which is extremely going to be important and critical. And how do you enable your organization to be able to do that? And hybrid is in. hybrid is going to stay on because you don't want to let go the entire collaboration, innovation, people coming together, this whole social life of building the culture, and the culture happens only when there is a connect, right? And that phenomena will never go away. Having said so, you also need to respect the work-life balance. You also need to respect what priorities people can have. And therefore, flexibility is going to be extremely important. And arising out of the flexibility and this whole model, what we have implemented in L'Oreal is called the best of both worlds. So how do you sort of make your work possible in the office as well as when you're not in the office? And could be home, could be anywhere, right? So it's something that absolutely liberates you. There are people who have said that we don't like working from home because our homes are small, setup is not good, so things like that. But you have a flexibility. If there is anything innovative, productive that you think you want to do individually, you can sit out of a coffee shop, you can sit under the tree, wherever you feel like, because that's where you get your eureka moments. And there are days where you have to really be collaborative in coming to the office. And therefore, the whole office setup has also changed today. So our entire office is now very open. There are no cabins, there are only collapsed spaces that are, created. So I think this whole new ways of, let me not say new ways of, it's actually a modern ways of working because it's no longer a future, it's already happening, has actually infused a lot of changes. And I think we being in HR become the front runner of managing all of this. I think it's really very important we recognize this because that will go a long way in creating an employee experience in the company and your branding over a long period of time.
Agree. We've discussed about the branding aspect of it and then the employee experiences and how the setup is done for them to be facilitating. Now I want to move on to an important aspect of it. When do you identify a leader in your organization, say a mid-management person? At what point of their journey with you, or at what point of their inception into the leadership team? When does that happen? Where do you exactly start realizing, yes, I have a employee in the team who has the leadership potential, or he's someone whom I should start investing? When I say he, it also includes he and she. When do you start that journey?
You want me to go first this time?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think for me, leadership is a very broad-based concept. It really depends upon at what level, how do you see this whole phenomena of leadership. And if I were to just answer one line to your question and then I'll dwell on what do I have in my mind, we actually start identifying the leadership proposition at every level. So if you are an individual, you may not have a team, but there are indirect teams that you are working, there are influencing aspect of your work that also forms a part of overall leadership and how you drive your work and your business. So actually we invest at every level. But having said so, the top two levels in the organization, which is where I think the CXO and one level down, that becomes an extremely important aspect for us to go out and invest. Particularly in the phase that we have seen in the last 2 years, 3 years, the whole definition of leadership has undergone a lot of change today. You are looking at different kinds of skill sets that today's leaders need to have. And I'll tell you, a lot of leaders have actually got exposed during the pandemic time because pre-pandemic, they were very good in managing their business. They were very good in managing their P&L. You ask them anything about how to manage their business, they were right up there. But here comes the crisis, which is of a very different nature, which requires a different kind of paradigm shift in your business. Became an extremely big challenge for a lot of leaders. And therefore, it just came back to our conversation at the management level. Are we preparing our leaders to be extremely agile in a very crisis kind of a situation? And hence, for example, scenario planning. Today, I'm investing a lot in my leaders today to equip them how to do scenario planning. Your plan A and plan B is not enough. You have to have your plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, right? So these are the different aspects of leadership that you have to really start investing. Humanistic value. I think we went completely gaga over technology over the last 2-3 years, and I know this will remain, and we have to keep adapting. extremely happy about it, but not at the cost of losing our empathy, not at the cost of losing our humanistic value. So how do we balance all of these outs are going to be really very important. We do our leadership talent review, and I think historically we've been doing it every year. But today, the talent is very fickle. You know, your situations are changing. You are constantly evaluating your people and a different paradigm. So actually, we've started doing our talent review 4 times in a year. And we really back this with a very strong career conversation that goes on with our managers on a regular basis, because that really keys into come back and do our talent review and do course correction every quarter actually. So that's how we start, to develop on the leadership aspect.
Govind, what's your thought process around this?
So interesting question once again, and this forms a very, very important aspect from a HR standpoint. At our company, what we do is we don't wait for the year end, okay, to do a formal review or an appraisal. That's a process that will run each year or maybe end of every 6 months. Okay, but what we do is have conversations on a continuous basis with people. Okay, this is to identify their thought process, their expectations from the company. Okay, what do they want to achieve by working with us is what we try to understand. And during the course of these conversations, during these formal reviews, we are able to handpick people at every level. Okay, so typically you will find 3 buckets of people. You will have a very high performer, you will have an average performer and a low performer. The real challenge is to push the average performer to the next level. Okay, and how do you do that? Even an average performer can turn into a leader. So how do you do that? You have various methods to do that. It takes a lot of hand-holding. You have to have a lot of conversations. And fortunately for us, we are an open architecture firm in that sense, non-hierarchical. Our managing director would know even the staff members at the junior most level. Okay. And the management team invests a lot of time in having these conversations to be able to identify, to be able to handpick people who can be prepared and groomed to take on the next level roles. Okay. And as a group, we are present in most financial service businesses. Okay, so the advantage that we have is we are able to move people within the group, which is a very, very massive strength for us because we've been able to retain talent. And when we annually, when we do our long service awards, people who have been with the company for 25 years, 30 years is common, not really a big deal. Okay, and people have stayed back with the group primarily because they have been given leadership positions, they have been given challenging positions. They have learned new businesses. They've been able to work with different group companies, different business lines, and they've grown as an individual as well. Okay, and they want to stay with the group, and they want to give back to the group. And I can quote several such examples. Okay, so the key is you have to have a very open architecture, open environment where you know your employee and your employee feels free to come back to you if he or she needs help. I think that's the key.
Cool, nice, good one. So as we move on to Mona, I want to add another flavor to this aspect of it. As you discuss about identifying a leader, when did you identify yourself as a leader? When did you start realizing like, yes, I've started my journey of becoming a leader over a period of, when did that happen?
If I have to answer the earlier, because I had some insights to share. Can I do that first?
Yes, please. Okay. Yeah.
So, like we are talking about, I think Roshni also spoke about it. The first thing is people connect. Without people connect, I think culture and everything, branding, everything doesn't work as required. While we were in pandemic, there were many situations where we were trying to get in touch with our employees and people, but we were not 100% there. So that time what we had done is, we had actually made a people development sheet, which usually they have. We have KRAs on which the performance appraisals are done. With performance appraisals, we had this people development sheet for which at each level, what is the competency of leadership required? We had very clearly mentioned that. And that form, I think it is a dictionary for each individual who joins the organization. While in the induction we speak about that too much, because if I am an executive today, you don't have to perform like an executive. Your expectation is like a senior executive. So they know what is the benchmark at each level. So while they are performing, you had asked the question that at what level do we train them? So I think it starts absolutely from an executive level, because leadership is not only about managing a team. It is more about how you are managing your stakeholders, managing your work at what you are at. I think interns, I've seen interns who are working fabulously well because they have that leadership trait while they have joined in that organization. So I think this leadership competency form which we had made had helped a lot for us to understand who are these potential leaders who can then be promoted to become a manager or a senior manager. Because we had seen, and I'm sure all of you have seen that, see these cases where when I was an individual contributor, I was doing awesome. But post that, when I was managing a team, I was not able to manage as I was doing earlier. So while doing that, you will have to actually know who are your potential leaders. Otherwise, the people who are doing their individual contribution, that goes on toss. So I think that there should be a clear mechanisms of how you are understanding what kind of leaders you are training them. And basis that the training programs and development programs comes. To the second question which you had asked, that when did I understand? I think it was right while I was working an executive, but I did not know that was called a leader. I thought I am little different because I used to get along with people around. I used to work with them. My alignment with my managers was right. But actually when I understood that this is called a leadership trait, when I started managing assignments, I spearheading these assignments, and post that I was given a team to manage it. So I think that was the journey. When I was at, I think RadioCity, I was recruited as an individual contributor. I was managing one segment of franchisee third-party employees, where I used to manage it myself, but the way it was managed, I was confident that I can manage much more better. And I think in stages, there is a reflection and you understand these are your strengths, and I think we should work on our strength and people whom we are working on.
That's nice. I mean, Govind, would you like to add anything on?
My part of the journey, almost completed 25 years in the industry. I should put it this way, I've been fortunate to work with senior people right at the outset when I started my career post my management education. And that gave me a lot of opportunity to understand how the senior management or the head of the organization thinks, what does he or she expect from the company, how does he run the company. Okay, and these insights have helped me develop a style of my own. Okay, apart from my personal values or belief systems, I've always ensured that I've been honest with my employees. Okay, and I've been fair. I've never given any kind of false hopes to any of my employees. I would rather say no and lose an employee rather than giving that employee false hopes. Okay, and I think that has helped me and held me in good stead, even after now 25 years. Okay, people from my previous organizations, even today after several years, they'll get in touch with me, seek my guidance, career guidance, and I've been fortunate enough to play a positive role in the lives of my employees over these years.
That's good to know. I mean, as a leader, when you evolve, right? I mean, it's obvious that you have the followers, and then people start becoming a minimized version of you, or someone who picks on those traits and everything. Have you spent that time? I mean, who's your sounding board? After becoming a leader, do you reach out to them? Do you reach out to them on a regular basis? Have those interactions? We had Gen X, Y, Z, and then there's millennials who have stepped in, who come in with a different set of ideas altogether. So Roshni, if you can.
So I think for me, firstly, I think being a leader and how do you identify yourself a leader? For me, I think it was about how much I could stretch myself at every level. For every new project, that was being introduced in the company, and my hand will go up saying that I want to be part of this project. And I never knew that this is something that is going to take me to, build a lot of my own clarity, my understanding, and be in the bigger shoes than what I could do. I think that's where the journey started. The leadership is something that you can already, something that you can build. Sounding board, yes. I think as you start going up and up, the oxygen level starts dropping. You become more and more lonely, right? And it's very important to do two things. One, the self-reflection. I think that is really very super important to sort of do a little mirror image of yourself and see what you're doing, how you're doing. And definitely have a mentor around you. I think that's really very important, because you have to also be very cognizant and cautious of the fact that you cannot be showing yourself up every time as your weaknesses in front of many people. Of course, vulnerability is something that I really think is important, because it puts you in a very different perspective. But having a right mentor who can really sort of listen to you and be able to record it back and play it back for you, I think that's really very important.
So, I mean, we are bound to have those mentors over a period of time. I mean, we typically look at our teachers, and then we find our own relatives who become an inspiration for us, and then there are obviously the stars that we have, the movie stars or sports person and everyone. But how is that you channelize all of these thought processes? Because people come in with different perspectives into the organization. So when they step in, I mean, how is that you control it, or how is that you set the guidelines across for the newbies who are stepping into the organization? How does that work for you, Mona?
So I think once we know that this is the way forward, the best thing which usually I follow is I get in my team, there are people who are from millennials also, because it is Radio City. We have many new joinees who are they have just completed their MBAs and they are here. I think we have a set of group, we discuss on each initiative. Like for HR initiatives also, it is not because they don't accept it. If I plan and I tell this is the policy and this we need to do, it is like a press conference immediately. Why are you doing this? What will this help us in? So we used to do this way before, but now it doesn't happen in that way. We are not absolutely talking 100% happens in that way, but there are certain policies which we know it will help them. I think a conversation with them, taking insights from them to make them accountable for what we are doing and including them in what we are doing, I think it makes a huge difference. And the insights which they give, I think it is out of the mind. We think in a different way and they think absolutely in a different way. And when they say that, we actually think that this can be done and it can be done in both the ways which could help them and us. So I think that bit is there.
That's nice.
And if I were to take a dig on this, I think my one-liner to the newbies, irrespective of whatever level they join, I always tell them that you are never too new, you are never too young to be able to contribute. So don't try to come and fit into the mold, but create your own mold. I think that's exactly what I.
Nice. Oh,
and that goes with our employer branding, which is freedom to go beyond. That's something that's.
Sure, certainly. Govind, any thoughts on this one?
The formula which says one size fits all doesn't work anymore. Okay, every individual is a different individual, and if you look at the new generation today, unlike our generation, they think completely differently. Okay, they are not attached to material things. They don't want to buy a house. They don't want a car. Okay, what they want to do is live a life, and a meaningful life. Even in their jobs, they want to really add value. What is their purpose? Why would they work? They don't want a paycheck at the end of the month, or they don't want to just spend their time at the workplace. They would like to add value. Okay, and they're highly intelligent people. They think. They do a lot of self-reflection today, which is, I think, a big strength for this generation. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of leaders emerging from this crowd where they'll be able to not just create something new rather than spending their life working for a company. Okay, and we've seen numerous examples today. People quit their jobs work on startups, their startup project fails, they don't give up. Suddenly, one idea takes off and they become famous globally, right? But did we have that in us 20 years back or 15 years back? No. So completely different generation, and I think the time is right for these guys to flourish. Okay, and there are numerous platforms where they get the right kind of support and infrastructure today. And I think for our generation, okay, we've seen a lot of new things evolve. Okay, 97, we just saw the mobile phones emerging. Okay, today your mobile phone even has a torch. It can monitor your ECG, your blood sugar. It has immense possibilities today. So the world is changing completely, and so are we. And as HR people, I think we should change ourselves and be attuned to what is happening in the environment.
Cool. Nice. Thank you so much. Thanks for having all the patience to answer. Those were all wonderful answers. I take a back seat now. I open it up to the audience if anyone has any question to be.
I'm sure our panelists will be more than happy to interact with all of you on a one-on-one while enjoying a bite together. But really to thank each one of you for sharing your experiences, may I once again request Mr. Rishi Kapoor to please join us on stage and present our panelists with the speaker plaque. This is our way of saying thank you for joining us. And let's hear it up for each of them here on stage.